Okay, let's dive right in. Right now, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is operating at a scale that's, well, completely off the charts. But here's the twist. While the numbers are at a record high, the agency's tactics on the ground have taken a really dramatic and frankly surprising turn. In this explainer, we're going to break down what's happening, why it's happening, and what it all means. So this is the core paradox we're looking at. On one hand, ICE detention has absolutely exploded, hitting an all-time peak with tens of thousands of people in custody. But on the other hand, the agency has quietly backed away from the very thing it became famous or infamous for, those huge high-profile raids on streets and at workplaces. It just doesn't seem to add up, right? So, you gotta ask, what's really behind this big strategic shift? Why is the agency locking up more people than ever before, but at the same time making their enforcement actions way less visible? Let's dig into the data and find out. Okay, first things first. To really get what's going on with the strategy, you have to grasp the sheer scale of this operation. The numbers themselves tell a story of a massive, massive expansion in a super short amount of time. Right now, as of March 2026, ICE is holding roughly 70,000 people. And we're not talking about one or two giant facilities. This population is spread out across more than 225 different centers all over the country. This is a truly historic, record-shattering number for the agency. And this chart, wow, it really puts into perspective just how fast this all happened. That 70,000 number, that's a staggering 80% jump since the administration took office back in January 2025. I mean, it's practically a vertical line. But the real question is, who exactly are all these people being detained? And this is where it gets really interesting. Check out this demographic breakdown. According to the source data, nearly 3/4 of all the people currently in ICE detention, we're talking 73.6%, have no criminal convictions at all. And that little detail? It's absolutely crucial for understanding the big picture here. Look, when you have an expansion that big, that fast, there are going to be consequences. And the source material really digs into the very real human cost of running at max capacity like this. So, since the fiscal year kicked off in October 2025, there have been 23 reported deaths in ICE custody. And just to put that into perspective for you, that number has already blown past the total for the entire year before. It actually puts 2026 on track to be the deadliest year for immigration detention in over 2 decades, since 2004. So, what's behind this tragic spike? Well, advocates and watchdog groups cited in the reports are pointing to a perfect storm of factors that are all tied directly to this surge. We're talking severe overcrowding in facilities, which just strains every resource, limited and sometimes non-existent access to proper healthcare for detainees, and just an overall trend toward much harsher conditions inside the detention system. So you've got this immense pressure building up inside the system, right? And at the same time, there's this intense pushback from the public and in the courts. Something had to give. And it forced the agency to completely pivot its entire strategy. And you can really see how it all went down on this timeline. At the start of 2025, the administration came out swinging with these really aggressive, large-scale sweeps they called Operation Metro Surge. But that just triggered huge protests and a flood of legal challenges. It got so intense that by early 2026, the courts were getting slammed with over 400 habeas corpus petitions a day from people in detention. The pressure was just immense, and it led to that public pivot in March to what the agency now calls these smaller, targeted operations. Okay, so the tactics on the ground change, and right along with it, the messaging changes too. But this is where things get complicated. We start to see a pretty big gap between the official story and what the agency's own numbers are showing. The new public message is, it's crystal clear. You see it right here in this quote from an official press release. The focus is now squarely on public safety threats. They're going after, quote, the worst of the worst. That's the story being told to the public about this new targeted approach. But then you look at the data. While the official line is all about these serious offenders, some of their own internal numbers tell a very different story. As you can see, the percentage of people arrested with any kind of criminal record varies. But the key number, the one we're told to focus on, those with violent convictions, the, quote, worst of the worst, that makes up less than 14% of the total. So there's a real disconnect there, right? Between the messaging and the math. All right, so let's get to the bottom line. With this quieter, new strategy in place, what are the actual results? And what kind of roadblocks is the agency still running into? Well, one thing is for sure, this new strategy is leading to more removals. No question about it. Deportations are up almost 50% from the year before, and they're on pace to hit 470,000 for the fiscal year. The goal is definitely to speed up removals, and on that front, the numbers are climbing. Though it's worth noting they still fall short of some of the broader campaign promises that were made. But, and this is a big but, there are still some major hurdles. The whole system is just under a massive amount of logistical strain. You've got key policies still being blocked by the courts. There are these constant funding standoffs in Congress. And on top of all that, the legal challenges over the actual conditions inside detention centers, they just keep coming. So yeah, the road ahead is anything but smooth.
And all of that leaves us with this one big lingering question. ICE has clearly found a new, much less visible way to carry out its mission on a record-breaking scale. But as this new front line just keeps expanding quietly, you have to ask, what's the ultimate cost? Not just for the people caught in the system, but for the system itself.